ค่ะขอสวัสดีท่านแขกผู้มีเกียรติทุกท่านนะคะดิฉันจิรวรรณปีทองนะคะขอยินดีต้อนรับทุกท่านนะคะเข้าสู่งานสัมมนาของเรานะคะสัมมนาในวันนี้นะคะเราใช้ชื่อว่า Agile Inspire Your Business สัมมนานะคะซึ่งจัดขึ้นในวันนี้นะคะวันศุกร์ที่ 8 สิงหาคมนะคะเราก็จะเริ่มกันประมาณ 13:30 นนะคะแล้วก็คาดว่าจะเสร็จสิ้นกันประมาณ 5 โมงเย็นนะคะค่ะก็ก่อนอื่นก็ต้องขอเรียนนะคะว่างานสัมมนาครั้งนี้นะคะจัดขึ้นโดยชมรมไทยแลนด์สปรินนะคะซึ่งไทยแลนด์สปรินเนี่ยก่อตั้งขึ้นจากความร่วมมือของภาครัฐนะคะอย่างเช่นภาครัฐเนี่ยก็คือเขตอุตสาหกรรมซอฟต์แวร์ประเทศไทยนะคะแล้วก็เป็นความร่วมมือของภาคเอกชนนะคะอย่างเช่นธอมสันรอยเตอร์นะคะ DST International นะคะIBM นะคะแล้วโอกาสนี้ดีจริงๆเลยค่ะเพราะว่าเราได้รับการสนับสนุนด้านสถานที่นะคะจากบริษัท Microsoft นะคะดิฉันขอขอบคุณณโอกาสนี้ด้วยนะคะเพื่อไม่ให้เป็นการเสียเวลานะคะดิฉันขออนุญาตเข้าสู่เซสชั่นช่วงแรกเลยนะคะซึ่งเราก็จะมาฟังเซสชั่นเกี่ยวกับ Agile Software Development Methodology นะคะ And today we are honored to have Mr. Roy Morin as a speaker. First of all, I would like to introduce him first. Mr. Roy is teaching in Agile Software Development Method in System Analysis and Design, Agile Project Management Methods and Software Project Management, Database Development Method, and so on. Please welcome Mr. Roy Morin to be a speaker in Agile Software Development Methodology, please.
Okay, good afternoon. As I speak very little Thai fromภาษาไทยได้นิดหน่อย but from ภาษาอังกฤษมาก I will speak in English. I hope you understand. Agile development methods in software projects. Seeking better ways. We are always looking for better ways to undertake our software development activities. In Thailand, we have the Software Process Improvement Network, we have Software Park, and other activities aimed at improving software methods and, as the introductory slide said, inspiring business. So, you may have seen, if you received your email today, I have 140 slides, so I think I'd better go very quickly. Okay. First, I would like to address what I see, and I believe many other people see, as the true nature of software development. Software development has often been considered an engineering discipline. Thus we get the term software engineering. But is it? This is a question I think we need to discuss. Is it an engineering discipline? I go back to 1996, a very famous book by Mr. Steve McConnell called Rapid Development, Taming Wild Software Projects, who suggests that there are 4 dimensions to software development projects: the people, the tools, the process, and the product. And basically what he is saying is a development activity is done by people, for people, using development tools while following a process to produce a product. And that should come as no surprise to anybody. But the point I want to make is that of primary and first importance is it's about the people. The people involved in the software development activity. As McConnell said, we now know with certainty that people-aware issues have more impact on software productivity and software quality than any other factor. It's now crystal clear that any organisation that is serious about improving productivity should look first to the people-aware issue. And we also have these famous and classic books by Tom DeMarco, Tim Lister, Larry Constantine, and of course Clouger of CFAME. Implementing systems is difficult and many projects fail. Yes, we know that. We have a 30-year history of many failed projects. They fail for a number of reasons. For example, the team of people may be dysfunctional. The intended users of the system may refuse to accept the change that goes along with it. Key errors may occur in the planning, which is done by people, or requirements gathering, which is done by people. I want to emphasise time and again, and absolutely, it's about the people. And so if we're going to look at any concept of process improvement, we have to look at the way people behave and have a software project process that assists the people, not control them. So who are the people? Well, we have the project owners and the financiers. We have the domain experts, the people in the business who know all about the business. We have the users of the system, the developers and the technical people, and we have the project manager. They must be able to communicate effectively. Communication is a primary requirement, and any software development process must have communication built in, continual communication built in as part of the process. People learn from experience. When we use a system, we learn about it. When you sit down in front of your terminal and use the system, you are learning about why it is not good. You are learning about why it is good. You are learning all sorts of interesting things by using the system. People learn from experience. Software development is a learning activity carried out by people. So we have to consider the lines of communication. Requirements determination is a learning activity. When you go to your potential users and you say, what do you want in the system? It's a communication activity between people. As the project proceeds, people learn more and more. This is how people behave. This is a fact of life about people. And knowledge that the people have must be shared, and people learn from other people. This must be emphasised time and again. Communicate, learn and share knowledge. This is really saying the same thing again. But any software development process and software project management process must enable and magnify the communication, learning and knowledge sharing. I go back to a lot of the management literature. Champy, one of the business re-engineering champions in the mid-90s, and his book, Re-Engineering Management, The Mandate for New Leadership. And he talks about the people and the fundamental importance that the people play in any organisation. And we had comments like, we must start giving out assignments and trusting people to carry them through. Our company culture, this is HP, Hewlett Packard, our company culture is based on trust and respect for individuals. Now, if you read these quotes and you look at this management literature, you see coming out of this a very clear lesson, a very clear message. Command and control management is at best ineffective and at worst damaging. And unfortunately, in the past, in my view at least, a lot of the software project management approaches have been based fundamentally on command and control management processes. Chamby talks about building a sustained competitive advantage. All of this is talking about the role of people in the organisation. Now, the primary title of this seminar today was about inspiring your business. And if you're going to inspire your business, you have to look at the leadership, the management, the role of the people in the business, and how the business culture must change. You cannot have a culture of obedience to change of command. It just won't work. And so on. Companies die because their managers forget that their organisation's true nature is that of a community of humans, a community of people. Very famous example now of the fact that companies really don't need managers. In fact, there's a viewpoint that managers get in the way. Ask yourself always the question, what value does the manager contribute to the final product? What value does the manager contribute to the final product? Do we need managers? Can we trust people to do the job without command and control management? And here we have a very good example. Walmart, a giant organisation, much criticised, but when Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans and nearly destroyed the city, Walmart granted wide latitude to its local and regional managers in providing disaster aid. There are many examples where the people at the low level of the organisation, the local level of the organisation, took matters into their own hands. In one case, got a big bulldozer and put it through the front door of the Walmart store and took all the products out into the parking lot and said, here is some aid. You've just been hit by a hurricane. You need water. Here it is. You need food. Here it is. Compliments of Walmart. The people at the lower levels were able to make decisions that were very beneficial. They didn't need the higher level managers. Unable to reach her superiors, assistant store manager, still quite low level in the organisation, decided to run a bulldozer through her store, collect essential supplies that weren't water damaged. The supplies were then stacked in the parking lot and given away to local residents. The main point is, lower levels of management and staff, if given the power, given the authority, can act on their own initiative in a most beneficial way. They can do it. So, the nature of software development is a human activity done by people. People have different levels of training, expertise and knowledge. It requires continual effective communication. Continuous learning occurs. You can't help learning unless you're totally dead in the head. And software development is a learning activity. It is a knowledge-sharing activity, not a process-driven activity. Software development is complex, experimental, experiential, and adaptive. That is the nature of software development. And how do you deal with your people? Well, again, we can go back to the management literature and look at some of the old classics, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We should be looking in the management literature instead of the project management literature. Toyota, the world's most successful, most profitable car manufacturer. Toyota is renowned as the company that created lean manufacturing. I have a book here, a wonderful book. I often read it on the aeroplane when I travel from Australia to Singapore or to Thailand. The management principles of Toyota can be summarised as fostering an atmosphere of continuous learning and improvement, satisfying customers and eliminating waste, quality first and consistently, grooming leaders from within the organisation, teaching employees to become problem solvers. These are the fundamental principles of the world's most successful manufacturer of cars. When Ford is making a $10 billion loss, Toyota is making a $20 billion profit. When General Motors is going into bankruptcy, Toyota is building new factories to increase its capacity. Another interesting example, I'm not sure the America's Cup is very famous in Thailand, but it's a big yacht race that very rich people spend a lot of time trying to win. The point was, New Zealand, a little country down there, somewhere near Australia, fielded a team to compete in the America's Cup. And for only the second time in 150 years, a country outside the United States won the Cup. The first time was done by Australia. And if we look at the organisation activities of Team New Zealand, the fact of the matter is the success has been attributed to the inspirational leadership of the syndicate leader. Note, leader, not manager. The strong sense of community within the syndicate team, the openness of communication between team members, customer-led development. The customers were their sailors on the water. What did they want? The sustained rate of continual improvement and the level of commitment and purpose by the individuals, by the participants. This syndicate exhibited many of the valuable traits of a learning organisation. We can look at Toyota's success, we can look at Team New Zealand's success, and we have a lot of common aspects, which boils down to leadership and people, communication, continual improvement. Peter Drucker, the famous management author from Harvard Business School, I think it is. The function of the society of post-capitalist organisations is to put knowledge to work. It must be organised for constant change. I then talk about the learning organisation. Given that we are a little bit short of time, I'll skip that. But the concept of the learning organisation is extremely important. Okay? Now, why am I continually talking about management? Why am I continually talking about people and communication, etc.? Because we need software development processes that have those things built in to enable the people to learn and communicate and develop with quality. The question I often consider is, what is your climate really buying? When you contract to develop a computer system, what really is the contract, is the client buying? Well, some people think they're buying a computer system. Well, they're not. They're buying a development activity. They're buying your organisation's ability to develop the product. Because software development is product development, and it's more aligned to research than to production and manufacturing. Any of the university people among us, do we do research in distinct activity phases, serially undertaken? For the next 6 months, we will plan and decide exactly what the new product is that we will discover in our research. Well, we don't know what the new product is because we're researching it, we're developing it. But we can have a vision of it. Product development requires creative thinking and experimentation. Can you command and control creative thinking and experimentation? Can you have a manager that says, today you will think creatively. Today you will paint a masterpiece. How many of you are involved in website design? Website design? Is only 2 of you? I'd expect a few more than that. Is website design a technical programming activity? No. I nearly failed my website design subject when I did my master's because mine didn't look really very nice. Website design requires an artistic eye, requires creativity. It's more akin to art, to painting, than it is to technical activity. So we need creativity, and you cannot command and control that. So let's ask the question. If we're going to create the environment that lets your IS people make their own decisions, manage themselves, be creative, can you trust them to do so? Management of professional people cannot be command and control. You cannot impose this requirement. Be creative, be productive, or else we will sack you. That's not very good from a motivation point of view. Professional people work best without direct supervision. They find their own way to be effective and efficient and creative and successful in doing their job. Can your IS development people be trusted to do that? If not, then the university that educated them has failed to give them the proper education. If not, then your organisation has failed to have proper and effective selection processes. If not, then you have failed to provide proper and adequate training. If not, then your organisation has a negative and demotivating culture and management style. So if not, you have a failure to educate, select, train and motivate. Don't blame the IS people. Blame your own corporate activity, corporate culture. But I believe that most IS people can be trusted to self-manage, to be creative without some manager telling them what to do. And that's where I arrive at when I talk about agile development. A software development process that trusts the IS people to do the job without direct command and control management. Okay, let's have a look at some of the assumptions about system development today. Traditional software development processes have been predicated on certain assumptions. Assumption number 1, it is possible, efficient and effective to create a thorough and complete analysis of requirements for the system at the start of the project. The traditional waterfall approach says, find out everything that must be in the system at the start. First phase, analysis. Go to your client and say, tell me everything you want. Don't blame me, that's the process. Second, it is possible to plan in detail the development project, even for 2 to 3 years ahead. Third, it is possible to provide accurate estimates of the cost of the project, of the development time and the completion date, even when it's a 2 or 3 year project and the completion date is 3 years away. Another assumption is requirements are stable. Once your client has told you everything they want, that won't change. And finally, plan the work and work the plan. Have a good, detailed plan and stick to it. Am I correct? Is this the list of things that we assume are correct when we follow a traditional planned development activity? I think so. Every textbook I've ever seen, up until recently, said that. Every university I've visited tells that to their students. You know, I had a funny experience. I went to Konkan University. Actually, I went to Mahasabaka, I went to Konkan, I went to Chiang Mai, I went to Hayao, I went to Uttaradin. I had great fun. I visited Chulalongkorn, Kazakhstan, Thammasat, and almost everywhere, nobody taught Agile development. Almost everywhere, nobody even understood Agile development, even heard the word. But there was one Ajahn at Konkan, a young man, who had built a really great development tool. It was a website generator. It was terrific. I loved it. I've been using and looking at application generators and code generators for 20 years, and I saw this and I said, that is terrific. That is such a good product. I said, how did you develop that? Did you, 5 years ago, sit down and write your specification of exactly what your document, what your system will do? Did you plan exactly the 5 years activity? And did you follow the plan? And is this exactly what is in your big requirements document? I said, okay, well, why do you tell your students that you can do that? You didn't, so why do you tell your students that you should? He kind of looked a little bit embarrassed. Okay. Phase development, technical activity, engineering, certainty of outcomes. Oh, and this is a good one. Project success is counted in terms of within budget, within time, within scope. Have you all heard of this before? Any project managers among us? Do you make your living by coming in within budget, within time, and within scope? And you do it every time? Every one of these assumptions which underpin the traditional waterfall model of development have been proven and demonstrated to be wrong. I like to say, for 30 years, the IT industry has behaved in a way that guarantees they will fail. And they're proud of it. Look, we stuck to the plan. The system was a load of rubbish and nobody wanted it, but we stuck to the plan. It was those stupid users who didn't tell us the right thing at the beginning. Any of you ever seen the movie called Dirty Harry? There's a famous scene in Dirty Harry, maybe it's not part of the Thai movie culture, but certainly the American and Australian movie culture it is, where Clint Eastwood is Dirty Harry. He's the detective, and he's got this great big gun. And there's a scene in the movie where he goes up to one of the crooks and says, "Okay, make my day, make one more move, and I'm going to blow your head off with my big gun." Well, you know, I've been to visit computer system or IT departments, and up on the wall there's been posters showing the big Dirty Harry gun saying, "Make my day, make one more change." You go to the company cafeteria, and over there you've got all the IS people saying, "The users over there, God, they're idiots. You know they wanted another change today." And over here you've got the users looking over there and saying, "The developers, what are we idiots? We asked for something simple and they can't do it." Is that the characteristic of systems development in your organisation? Business systems development over the last 30 years has been far from successful. Yes, there are many, many systems that do work eventually. But there are some huge failures. In 1995, some research showed that in the United States alone, $250 billion was spent on 175,000 IT applications. That's a lot of development. Of the $250 billion, $140 billion was wasted. I think somebody would pay me $1 million to completely waste of their time. I could do failed projects every day if they paid me $1 million to do it. I think I could make it be a really terrific failure as a project manager at $1 million a time. I would fail with the best. 250 billion spent, 140 billion wasted in 1 year. On average, only 61% of requirements were met in all the systems studied. And about 6% of the systems managed to provide everything the client asked for. 6% of systems were completely successful using these figures. In 1994, 16% of systems succeeded, and by 2000, 28% were succeeding. But in 2000, nearly 50% of systems were complete failures. That's the finding from this research. Project outcomes, another research activity. Systems used as delivered, 2%. Solved percent. Solved percent of systems were delivered and used. What about the other bad percent? Well, 27% were used but later abandoned. 67% were delivered but never used. They became shelfware. Have you heard the story? Have you heard the expression shelfware? It's software that sits on the shelf and nobody uses it. Is it bad percent? Systems paid for but never delivered. We have a look at some of the famous failures. I won't go into this in detail. $125 million failure, $45 million failure, £16.5 million failure, £500 million failure. Oh my God. In Australia, in the 80s, the Westpac Bank, after spending $200 to $300 million, they wrote the project off. The most recent one almost destroyed Australia's export economy. In 2005, the Australian Government Department of Customs delivered a system, and I quote an article, "The failure of the new integrated cargo system implemented by the Customs Service a week ago has produced a catastrophe." What is the Thai word for catastrophe? I don't know. But a catastrophe is pretty awful, I can tell you. A catastrophe. See, this is the other thing that you must always remember. Quite often your system will either make or break your organisation. The business cost of a failed system is probably far more than the actual cost of development. This system was originally costed at $33 million. When it was finally implemented, it had cost $250 million. 8 times. It was supposed to take 3 years and it took 5 years. And after spending $250 million and coming in 2 or 3 years late, it didn't work. Now please, can somebody explain this to me? How is it possible? How can you spend $250 million, implement a system that fails and causes a catastrophe? It was called the most serious crisis to hit the industry since the council of that industry was formed in 1904. And here we have the cause of the problem. The waterfall model. At least I believe it's the cause of the problem. You see, in the beginning, people who came up with the waterfall model forgot about feedback cycles. So after a while, they had to include feedback cycles. So here we have the phases of the waterfall model. You do all of your requirements. All of your requirements. What is called big design up front. Then you design it, you implement it, you do some more testing, and you put it into operation. Let me give you a little drama. This is a project manager. And this is true. This is exactly true. I would never tell you a lie. This is true. Friday afternoon. The system is going to be implemented on Monday. Here's the project manager. Oh, this is after 2 years of development. Oh, God, I hope it works. Oh, I hope it works. What if it doesn't work? Oh my God, I hope it works. Please, God, make it work. So our final quality assurance is prayer. That's true. I saw that. I'm sitting at my desk looking at the person saying, my God, isn't it a bit late? The day before you implement the system, isn't it a bit late to wonder if it's going to work? Why didn't you understand this at any time in the previous 2 years? Because now we have the famous Polaroid waterfall phase. Disappointment and rejection in about 72% of cases in 2000. The Agile developers' view of the waterfall approach. It creates the highest risk at the start. It doesn't do away with risk, it creates the highest risk. Because when you think that you have got all of the requirements and you do not want any changes to those requirements, you have prevented learning. You have said, that's all we want. We do not need to learn anymore. Right? If you say to your client, tell me everything and then we'll go away and develop it, you're saying we don't want to learn anymore. So we have rejected the idea of learning as we go along. We have rejected the idea of adaptive planning. We have rejected the idea that requirements emerge. We have rejected the idea that people learn as they do. People learn from experience. One of the problems with all of these requirements is requirements are perishable. As they sit on the shelf, they sort of get and the longer the requirements sit on the shelf, waiting to be developed, the more they perish and become irrelevant. The more they are dropped, because they become stale and irrelevant as time goes on, because people do learn. Whether you like it or not, whether your software development method allows learning or not, people do learn. Okay? And this is why a major part of the thinking of Agile developers is what is called just-in-time analysis. We know the client wants that, and when we are about to develop it, we will find out all the details. So the details, the requirements, have no chance to become stale. Yesterday we spent the afternoon analysing this in detail, and today and tomorrow we will develop it, and in 2 days' time we'll deliver it to you. Just-in-time requirements analysis. Another problem with this is, if you have a... Hang on, let me ask another question. Do we have any students here? Any Naksuksa? Oh. So my fame as a teacher who didn't get into universities. Anybody here has been a student? Okay. Think back to your student days. First week of term. Exams are 16 weeks away. Let's go to the pub. Second week of term. Exams are 15 weeks away. Let's go to the pub. Why? Because there's no urgency. Exams are 16 weeks away. Of course we can go to the pub. We don't have to study. In week 14, we can really start studying. So our work effort goes from very little and then woo. But what happens if you have a test every week? And you have to study something every week and pass the test? There is always a sense of urgency. think, oh, I've got an exam on Friday, I've got to study. Go to the pub, no thank you, I've got to study for my exam. And so you can have a steady level of effort. Not, the deadline's 3 years away, who cares, let's go to the pub. No, the deadline's in 2 weeks for this, we've got to do it. So we're always working at a constant, steady level of effort. There is always an urgency if you have to achieve something and deliver something in 2 weeks' time. The phased approach is unnatural. Do any of you really sit down and do nothing but analysis? When you're doing analysis, do you ever start thinking about how you might do this? That's called design. So when you're doing analysis, you are also doing design. And when you're doing design, you are always thinking, I'm not sure about that. I'd better go back and find out some more. That's called analysis. And then when you're programming your website, you might go back to your client and say, I'm not sure if this is okay. Could you tell me a bit more about your design? Oh, is that analysis or design? That's how people work. Every day, this dynamic. Think about what to do, design it, not sure, program it, need more design. This is the way people behave. So it's unnatural to say, do all the analysis, but don't think about the design. No, that's next time. The other problem with the waterfall approach is, when you've said to your clients, tell me everything, then go away. Come back in 2 years' time and we'll give you a system. The user becomes irrelevant after they have apparently told you everything they want. Come back in 2 years' time, we will give you the system. And so what happens after 2 years? You go back to that department and say, here's the system. And they say, what system? Oh, Miss Noy was the user. Oh, Miss Noy got married and she's had a baby, she's not here. And she didn't tell us about this, so we don't want the system. Or, really? What's it do? We don't do that anymore. Is it any wonder we have systems failure? So, there's no realistic feedback cycle. Oh yes, we have change management. Make one more change. Change is for idiots, stupid users who couldn't tell us properly before. Right? Oh, but we'll have a change management system. Okay? And we will put all the changes in our change management database, and maybe we'll incorporate the change. Maybe. You see, when you have a change management system, you are giving yourself the option to say yes or no. And because saying yes will disrupt and change your plan, and we all know that we must have a plan, and we must work to the plan, and change to the plan is bad, then we'll try not to implement changes to the requirements because that will change the plan, and that's bad. So we can say no. And every time we say no, the final system is a little bit more not what the user wants. Another problem, well, lack of transparency. You know, clients, users aren't actually interested in how things are going. And if you're behind the locked door of IS, try to get in here, you need your PIN number, you need your card, you need your thumbprint. If you don't have a thumb, and you don't have a number, and you don't have a card, you can't come into the IS department. Right? Lack of transparency. End of line QA is ineffective. You know, Toyota has a management policy that anybody on the production line who sees a problem immediately stops the whole production line. And the problem is fixed before the production line starts again. So when the cars, trucks come off the end of the production line, they are good. Toyota apparently has a very, very small end-of-line quality assurance and testing section. Ford, on the other hand, if you stop the production line, you get sacked. Because their production philosophy is keep the line moving. And they have a very large QA and testing department. And they have a very large number of cars found to be faulty. Anybody ever seen those comedy movies where, you know, the production line gets faster and faster and all the biscuits are coming off and the biscuits are going everywhere? Well, why didn't they stop the production line? It's a comedy. If you apply that thinking to software development, you build your testing in every day. So nothing is delivered that is not fully tested. And that is actually one very big area in agile development thinking that we really should be attending to. Testing. I think there should be master's students and PhD students researching testing. Continual testing, continuous integration. What you're doing goes into the system every 5 minutes to see if it works now. You have many testing environments. Testing is now a major area of interest. And I suggest every one of you goes back to your organisation and sits down and thinks, how do we test? And is it effective? So that's another part of agile development. You constantly scrutinise what you do to see if it's effective and see if you can improve it. Inability of the user to verify the requirements document. Here we are. Sir, you're a project manager. Can you spend 10 minutes looking at that and tell me if there's any spelling errors? No. But isn't that what we do to clients? We give them the Bangkok telephone book and say, check to see if all the numbers are correct. And come back Monday and tell us. And so what do the poor users do? They say, well, it's like all the pages are numbered. Yeah, that's okay. And then 2 years later they say, but this is nonsense. So you've got a problem. No realistic validation of requirements. I'll tell you another story. Happened to be at Curtin University, where I was at one time in charge of all student industrial projects. But there were two streams. There was my stream and there was another stream of supervision. I was walking in the corridor one day and somebody came out of the office and they had a big pile of documents. And here they were, all this pile of documents. I said, hello. I knew him. He was a well-known project manager in industry who was helping out. I said, come on, He said, I'm going home to mark these student assignments. I said, what are they? Oh, the requirements documents. So So this was the outcome of one term's work to create these requirements documents. So, you're going to assess them, are you? Yes. Oh, and then some of them will be good and some of them will not be good, right? Oh, yes, that's what. I said, how do you know? How do you know that this document is any good? How will you assess it? Will you say, ooh, must be a good document because it weighs a lot. Oh, a lot of pages, must be a good document. Do you look at the ER diagrams and say, oh, nah. How do you know that the contents of these documents is in any way useful? You see that? Never thought about that. I said the reason is because you cannot verify and validate these requirements. And there's the problem. And so what we need is a way to verify and validate as we go. Not wait 2 years to say, oh my God, I hope it works. Oh, I hope it works. Please God, let it work. Because if it doesn't work, 2 or 3 years has gone. If you're using an agile iterative approach, maybe the worst case is, look, I'm sorry, you just completely wasted 2 weeks. I completely wasted 2 weeks. That's awful. But do you ever waste? Who knows Thomas Edison? Anybody ever heard of Thomas Edison? You're an American, aren't you?
Yeah.
Ah, yeah, there's up there. Any Thai people know Thomas Edison? Well, there's a famous story about Thomas Edison. He was the man who discovered, or what is it? The light bulb, yeah. He found out about the light bulb. He built a light bulb. You know, he apparently tried something like 110 times and failed. And somebody said to him, oh, you're not much good. 110 times you failed. That's a pretty poor record. And Thomas Edison apparently said no. He said, now I know 110 ways not to discover the light bulb. I have learnt a lot from my failure. And that's another aspect of learning organisations. Failure can be a good lesson, as long as it doesn't happen too often, and you don't make the same mistake many, many times. Many command and control type managers, you made a mistake, sacked. Have you ever heard the expression, a man who never made a mistake never made anything? I wonder if there's a Thai expression along those lines. Okay. Significant project risk is created at the start of the project. I better get moving on here. So what we need is an understanding that we cannot find out everything right up front. If we plan, we must plan. Without a plan, you will fail. But when the battle is started, the plan becomes irrelevant. That has been said by a number of very, very famous military generals. Von Clausewitz, Eisenhower, Dwight D. Eisenhower, who planned or was in charge of planning the largest activity, the biggest, most complex activity in human history, agrees. Without the plan, you will fail. But when the battle begins, the plan is irrelevant. Study the American Marine Corps. All their training right down to the lowest, do they call them grunts in the American Marine Corps? Yeah, right down to the lowest grunt, the lowest private. All their training is based on giving every soldier the ability to change the plan. As soon as a situation occurs, they have to react to it. Adaptive planning. That's essential. That's why software development is an empirical research activity. What about estimates? An estimate is a hope for the future. We hope it'll cost $33 million. The fact it cost $250 million, well, that's just because the project failed. Continuous updating of estimates is necessary. And the further out in the future you are trying to estimate, the less accurate your estimate is. Continuous estimating. Welcome change. Change is good. Of course it must be managed. If you have change thrashing, oh, put it over there. No, I don't like it. Put it over there. No, put it back again. Over there. No, I like it over there. Well, you're going nowhere. That's thrashing. But when people learn and change their ideas because they have learned, that's good. And if your development process and if your planning process says no change, then you've got a problem. So the Agilists will say, welcome change. Because every change will usually be an increment of improvement to the final system. Adaptive empirical approach. Command and control management of professional competent software developers is neither necessary nor successful. Okay, I think I've made my point. There is a certain amount of research evidence. Here's just over 1,000 projects studied for failure factors. 87% of the projects failed. Scope management related to attempting waterfall practices, including detailed upfront requirements, was the single largest contributor to failure. Okay? 43,700 projects indicated that productivity, as measured in function points, was nearly 20% higher per developer for iterative incremental development over a developer using the waterfall approach. So the Agile approach was 20% more efficient and 20% more productive based on function point analysis. The study showed that the less rigorous the adherence to the waterfall model, the higher the productivity. Okay, so let's get down to a few of the real details. This is what I tell my students, partly because they don't speak English very well, so I say, please learn these words. Right? Iteration and iterative, incremental, evolutionary, adaptive, emergent, just-in-time requirements, collaboration, retrospective and review, and this very nice word called chaotic. Chaotic is a word meaning that it is an activity that hovers between chaos and order. Systems development is fundamentally a chaotic activity, but we always are trying to keep order. Okay? Any of you disagree? Do you think software development is so nice and easy and always runs correctly? No, it doesn't. I'm sorry, it doesn't. It is chaotic. So we have the Agile Manifesto, put together by a group of concerned consultants in 2001. By the way, are we going to have a break? Anybody want a break? How about now? Nice one. Do we want sit and tea break?
Yes.
Okay, sit and tea break. Thank you very much. รับมาsit and tea ครับ